Greetings, folks. John Grace, President Investors Advantage, and the Money Doctor is in. Had the pleasure of talking with some good clients who just moved from Westlake Village about a year ago to Malibu. And Ted says Eileen has the place just looking spectacular. And he says, you know, looking at what happened in Napa, it's clear to me and Eileen that we've got to get ready for the big one. I go, what do you mean? He says, well, let's suppose there's a 6.7 off of Catalina. Those of us who live in Malibu may find it's a lot to get over. I mean, it won't be as simple, and it probably won't be pretty. So the way we look at it, John, is that we've got to prepare for the worst case scenario. We are now inspired. We've given ourselves the next 60 days to get our house in order. And by that I mean to make sure that we are earthquake prepared. I'm going to use that as a segue to say that investors, this would be an opportunity to be prepared as well. We're not trying to predict the future. My crystal ball is no better than yours. However, we might want to look at the worst case scenario and see how we might be prepared for that in the event of, trying to make sure that we can live. And I love what Ted had to say. I don't want to be a statistic. I don't want to be talked about in the news. I want to be, if I have to be, on the news talking about my story as opposed to someone talking about me. So I love what John Wooden had to say when I had the pleasure of meeting him on a couple of occasions. He said, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. Let's look at some of the good news, and we'll look at some of the bad news. The good news right now is that we've got a job market that seems to be improving. We have consumers who appear to be back in spending, all right? And then we have a strong business cycle that's occurring. Businesses are spending. However, notice they're not hiring the kind of employees that they used to hire in terms of their income level. And then in the bad news, we all know QE infinity has got to stop. At some point, it's going to end. These are countries around the world that are printing money. This has never happened before. At some point, it's going to end. What will happen then? No one knows. We've never been here before. But I suspect we might be appropriate for us to be prepared that it might not end well. Let's be prepared for that. And then if it ends fine, we're just fine, right? If Ted and Eileen prepare for a 6.6 off of Catalina, it never happens, they're cool. And if it does happen, they'll probably live to tell the story, and that's what it's all about. What we've seen recently is we saw that, the hottest real estate in the developed world has been London, until the last 3 to 6 months, where prices seem to be falling precipitously. Is it possible that's a sign that that kind of event could happen in other countries? That's a real possibility. And then the third point in terms of the bad news is this year, 2014, is the year when the high-income earners, the top 1%, the top 20%, on average turn 53. The reason age 53 is important, let's look back a bit. Mid-40s is the time that most Americans have high income and high spending, the highest in their lives. The highly compensated tend to get out of school later, get married a little bit later, so they're behind the average of the 40-year-olds. They turn 53, but then guess what happens as we look forward? The chart that we showed in our last report, spending falls off like a waterfall. It happens good in 2014. Moving forward, I dare say it's hard to re-engineer this, all right? This is watching ordinary people do very predictable things. So let me suggest that you do 3 things. And let's look at a quote from Thomas Munson. Learn from the past. Prepare for the future, live in the present. So let's live in the present and learn from the past as we prepare for the future. I'm going to suggest get some help on this. Maybe you don't need to try to do this at home, but get some help. Go back to your advisor. How far did our account go from 2000 to 2002? Go back and look. How far did our account go down from 2007 to 2008? Go back and look. And then, secondly, ask the question, what could we have done about that? In other words, how might we have been able to minimize the losses? Was there a way to move money off the table so that our participation in the decline wasn't as severe? Was there some places where money could have been made that I didn't see before? Would have dampened the downward volatility where the stock market took the account down. Because here's what I'm saying. If we look at the NASDAQ 00 to 02, it's about an 80% loss from peak to trough. That's in your recent history. Let's suppose it happens again, and you're trying to retire. You've got $1 million. An 80% drop occurs for reasons you never even imagined. And now your $1 million is at $200,000. How you doing? How long can you live like this? Looked like it was going to be okay, and then it's cut by 50 to 80%. Just play the game from the standpoint of this is the worst case scenario. How might we survive to tell the story? And with that, John Grace, the Money Doctor, is out.